You just drank that. The Salaxian's translucent appendages trembled as their optical sensors dilated to maximum aperture. That was pure Cathraxian extract. It's killed every species we've ever tested it on. Dave looked down at the now empty vial in his hand, then back at the panicking alien scientist. He shrugged. Tastes like Red Bull mixed with battery acid. Not the worst thing I've had this week. He paused, considering. Actually reminds me of this moonshine my buddy Steve made in his bathtub back in college. The research facility's emergency containment protocols activated with a shrieking wail. Blast doors slammed shut as decontamination fields shimmed into existence, bathing the laboratory in an eerie purple glow. 3 more Xylaxians burst into the room wearing what Dave assumed were their version of hazmat suits, though they looked more like sparkly trash bags with tentacle holes. Quick, get the human into quarantine. We need to start emergency detox procedures before... The lead medical officer stopped mid-sentence, mandibles clicking in confusion as Dave casually leaned against a lab bench, scrolling through his phone. Before what? Dave glanced up. Oh hey, would you guys mind if I grabbed a snack? Those toxicity tests really work up an appetite. The cafeteria is still serving lunch, right? But you should be dead. The original scientist, Dr. KRX, consulted their datapad with trembling appendages. The Cathraxian extract has a mortality rate of 100% across all 2,847 documented species exposures. Death occurs within 3.7 minutes through catastrophic cellular breakdown. Dave checked his watch. It's been what, 15 minutes? Speaking of which, when do you think these containment protocols will lift? I've got a date tonight with this cute Centaurian from accounting. Though I guess being quarantined could make for a decent excuse if I wanted to cancel. She's nice and all, but her idea of dinner involves photosynthesizing for 6 hours. The medical team huddled together, chittering rapidly in their native language while occasionally shooting bewildered glances at Dave. He took the opportunity to snap a selfie with the emergency containment field in the background. The purple lighting really brought out his eyes. This is unprecedented, the lead medical officer finally declared. We need to run a complete battery of tests to understand how you survived. More tests? Dave sighed. Fine, but can we do it after lunch? And maybe speed things up a bit this time. The last round took forever because you kept waiting for me to die between each trial. Dr. KRX's appendages twisted in what might have been embarrassment. We were operating under the assumption that each subsequent test would prove lethal. The statistical probability of surviving even one was, well, impossible. Yeah, about that. Dave scratched his head. You might want to update your database. Turns out humans are pretty hard to kill, like embarrassingly hard to kill. We're basically cockroaches with student loans and opposable thumbs. Cockroaches? One of the medical team queried. Oh man, you guys don't know about cockroaches? Hold up, let me show you some videos. These little guys survive stuff that makes your poison look like apple juice. Dave pulled up some nature documentaries on his phone, and soon had the entire medical team clustered around him, alternating between fascination and horror as they watched cockroaches endure conditions that should have rendered them very, very dead. Impossible, Dr. KRX exclaimed. No biological organism should be able to withstand such extremes. Welcome to Earth, Doc, Dave grinned. We call it a death world for a reason. Everything there either evolves to be really hard to kill, or it dies trying. Usually both. Both? How can it be both? Well, sometimes things die trying to become harder to kill, but their descendants figure it out. Evolution's weird like that. Take humans, for example. We're basically what happens when you throw a bunch of primates into an evolutionary blender and hit puree for a few million years. The lead medical officer's optical sensors pulsed rapidly. Your species intentionally consumed potentially lethal substances to develop immunity? What? No, that's ridiculous. Dave paused. Well, okay, maybe sometimes. There's this thing called hair of the dog where you drink more alcohol to cure a hangover. And my Aunt Sharon swears by eating local honey to build up allergy resistance. Oh, and don't get me started on hot pepper eating contests. The medical team's collective horror grew with each example. You deliberately consume capsaicin? The chemical compound plants evolved specifically to prevent consumption? Prevent consumption? Dave laughed. Nah, that just makes it more fun. Some guys I know rate their hot sauces by how many safety waivers you have to sign before buying them. My buddy Mike has one that technically qualifies as a chemical weapon in 47 star systems. Dr. KRX frantically typed notes into their datapad. This is remarkable. A species that not only survives toxic substances but actively seeks them out for entertainment? Oh sure, that's just the tip of the iceberg. Wait until you hear about energy drinks, or that phase in college where people were eating laundry pods. Actually, maybe we skip that part. Not humanity's proudest moment. The lead medical officer raised an appendage. I have a question about your earlier statement regarding this moonshine substance. Now that's a fun story, Dave brightened. See, humans figured out really early that if you let fruit rot in just the right way, it turns into something that makes you feel amazing and also maybe blind. So naturally, we spent the next few thousand years perfecting the process of controlled rot for recreational purposes. You intentionally consume spoiled fruit products? Well, when you say it like that, it sounds weird. We prefer terms like fermented or aged. Makes it seem fancier, you know? Some people pay thousands of credits for really old spoiled grape juice. The medical team fell into another huddle, their chittering now taking on a distinctly distressed tone. Dave used the break to check his dating app. The Centaurian had messaged him 3 times, apparently unbothered by the facility-wide lockdown. She'd even suggested they reschedule their date to include watching his cellular degradation, which he had to admit was a unique pickup line. We have reached a consensus, Dr. Carrick's announced finally. In light of your unprecedented survival and the unique characteristics of human biology, we would like to propose a formal research partnership. Sure, why not? Dave shrugged. But can we skip the really lethal stuff? My medical insurance has a weird clause about voluntary exposure to xenotoxins. Something about too many claims from the xenobiology department's holiday parties. You mean this has happened before? Oh yeah, all the time. There was this incident last year with some Arcturian ceremonial incense that turned out to be basically aerosolized antimatter. HR had to add a whole new section to the employee handbook after that one. The containment field finally powered down, and the blast doors retracted with a hydraulic hiss. Dave stretched and headed for the door, the still bewildered medical team trailing behind him. So, lunch? I'm thinking of trying that new Aldebaranian place down in Sector 7. Their menu has like 15 different skull and crossbones warnings, so it's probably pretty good. But their specialty is acid-fermented plasma fruits, one of the medical officers protested. The pH levels alone would dissolve most organic matter. Awesome. Sounds like it'll pair well with some hot sauce. Dave grinned. Anyone want to join? First round of potentially lethal substances is on me. The Zalaxians exchanged looks that somehow managed to convey existential dread despite their alien features. I'll take detailed notes of your survival, Dr. Carrick offered weakly. Suit yourself, Dave shrugged. But you're missing out. Nothing brings out the flavor of acid-fermented plasma fruit like a dash of weapons-grade capsaicin. As he walked away, Dave could hear Dr. Carrick frantically updating the xenobiology database's entry on humans. The last thing he caught was something about adding multiple warning labels and a notation that read, "Warning, standard toxicity metrics do not apply. Approach with caution and keep all substances classified as impossibly lethal, securely locked away, as humans will inevitably try to eat them." Dave smiled to himself as he headed to lunch. It was nice to contribute to scientific understanding, even if it was mostly documenting humanity's questionable relationship with self-preservation. He made a mental note to tell them about competitive eating contests next week. The looks on their faces when they learned about hot dog eating championships would be priceless. His phone buzzed with another message from his Centaurian date. She'd apparently heard about the Cathraxian extract incident and was even more interested now. Dave chuckled as he typed a response. It wasn't every day you survived an unsurvivable poison and impressed a date at the same time. Though he did make a note to check if the Aldebaranian restaurant had any antidotes on hand. Not because he needed them, of course, but sometimes it was fun to watch the waiters panic when you asked for them after finishing your meal instead of before. Just another day in the life of a human in an alien research facility. At least it wasn't boring. When a Deathworlder survived an alien poison that was fatal to every known species, Part 2. You took your date, where? Dr. Carrick's appendages flailed in such extreme agitation that they nearly dropped their datapad. The quantum anomaly testing chamber is not a recreational facility. Dave leaned back in his chair, feet propped up on his desk in the xenobiology department's break room. In my defense, she's really into weird physics. And you have to admit, the temporal displacement effects make for a pretty unique dinner atmosphere. Where else can you eat your dessert before your appetizer? That's because the chamber generates localized time distortions. The Zalaxian scientists' color shifted to what Dave had learned was their species' equivalent of an exasperated blush. It's designed for studying potentially universe-ending phenomena, not impressing potential mates. Hey, it worked though. Dave grinned, showing his datapad where his Centaurian date, Stella, had left a glowing review of their evening. 5 stars. She especially liked the part where we had to outrun that quantum singularity. Really got the heart pumping. Well, hearts in her case. Did you know Centaurians have 3 of them? Learn something new every date. Before Dr. K-Rex could properly express their horror at this flagrant misuse of cutting-edge scientific equipment, the facility's AI announced an incoming priority message. The holographic display flickered to life, showing the stern features of Director Vital, head of the Galactic Research Council. "Attention all personnel!" the director's translated voice boomed. "We have a situation. The Zorblaxian Empire has threatened to declare war unless we can prove that their latest bioweapon is actually lethal. Apparently, our human test subjects' survival of their supposedly unstoppable toxin has caused quite the diplomatic incident." Dave raised his hand. "Quick question. Was this the purple stuff that tasted like grape soda mixed with nuclear waste, or the green one that made all my bones vibrate?" "The purple one," Dr. KRX supplied helpfully. "The green one was last Tuesday." "Oh, right. That was fun. My skeleton played dubstep for like 6 hours. Director Vital's hologram pinched what passed for their bridge of their nose. "Mr. Davidson, this is serious. The Zorblaxians have staked their entire military reputation on creating the galaxy's deadliest poison. Your survival has made them somewhat upset." "Somewhat upset might be an understatement," a new voice chimed in as Stella walked into the break room, her bioluminescent fronds glowing with amusement. "I just came from the diplomatic section. They're threatening to feed him their entire arsenal of bioweapons to prove they're not losing their touch." "Oh, hey!" Dave brightened. "Does this mean we're getting free lunch?" The collective groan from everyone in the room, including the AI, was impressive in its synchronization. "This is exactly the attitude that concerns us." Director Vital sighed. "Mr. Davidson, you cannot treat deadly bioweapons as if they were items on a menu." "Why not? The cafeteria is serving mystery meat today. I guarantee whatever the Zorblaxians have is safer than that." Dr. Karex frantically waved their appendages. "He's not entirely wrong. Our analysis of today's cafeteria offerings showed traces of spontaneous quantum fluctuation in the gravy." "See?" Dave gestured triumphantly. "At least with bioweapons, you know what you're getting. It's right there in the name. Bioweapon. The cafeteria just calls it Chef's Surprise, which is way more ominous if you ask me." The director's hologram looked like it was developing a headache, which was impressive for a being made of light. "Nevertheless, we need to handle this diplomatically. The Zorblaxians are sending their chief weaponeer to personally oversee a new series of tests." "Cool. When's lunch?" Dave checked his watch. "Also, is this a formal thing? Should I wear my good hazmat suit?" "This isn't a social occasion!" Director Vital exploded. "This is a potentially war-triggering diplomatic incident." "So, business casual?" Stella's fronds rippled with barely contained laughter. "I don't think they care what you wear, Dave. They're more concerned with what they're going to feed you." "Speaking of feeding," Dave turned to Dr. KRX. "How did those tests on my cellular structure turn out? The ones from after that quantum-shifted cafeteria curry last week?" The Xylaxian scientist consulted their datapad. "Fascinating results, actually. Your cells appear to have developed a sort of temporal immunity. They're simultaneously existing in multiple quantum states, which theoretically should be fatal, but somehow you're just getting mild indigestion." "That explains the time-delayed burping." Dave nodded sagely. "Really throws off your timing in meetings when your burps are arriving 5 minutes before you eat." Director Vital's hologram looked like it was seriously reconsidering its career choices. "Can we please focus on the diplomatic crisis? The Zorblaxian delegation arrives in 2 hours." "Perfect timing for lunch, then." Dave clapped his hands together. "I'll tell you what. Let them bring their best shot. If it kills me, they save face. If it doesn't, they get valuable research data. Win-win." "That's not how diplomatic negotiations usually work," the director protested weakly. "Yeah, but normal diplomatic negotiations don't usually involve lunch, which automatically makes them inferior." Dave stood up, stretching. "Trust me, nothing brings people together like watching someone voluntarily consume things that should definitely kill them. It's basically how I made friends in college." Stella's fronds pulsed with curiosity. "Is that a common human bonding ritual?" "Oh yeah. We call it peer pressure, and hold my beer and watch this. It's responsible for like half of human technological advancement and most of our emergency room visits. Dr. Correx was already updating their notes on human behavior, adding a new section titled, Inexplicable Relationship Between Social Bonding and Near-Death Experiences. 2 hours later, the Zorblaxian delegation arrived in what they clearly intended to be an intimidating display of military might. Their chief weaponeer, a being that looked like a cross between a porcupine and a chemistry set, strode into the testing chamber carrying a case that hummed ominously. Dave, true to form, had shown up in a Hawaiian shirt decorated with little biohazard symbols. He'd claimed it was a compromise between formal and practical. "Human!" the chief weaponeer boomed. "Prepare to witness the true might of Zorblaxian chemical warfare." "Awesome," Dave replied cheerfully. "Hey, quick question. Does this stuff pair better with chips or crackers? I brought both, just in case." The weaponeer's spines bristled in confusion. "This is not a food. This is Compound ZX-19, the deadliest substance ever created." "Yeah, but everything's food if you're brave enough." Dave peered at the glowing vial. "Ooh, it's fizzy. I like fizzy." From behind the safety of the observation window, Director Vital was already drafting their resignation letter. Dr. KRX was taking notes so frantically their datapad was smoking slightly. Stella was recording everything, having already started a blog titled Dating a Deathworlder, a guide to human courtship and survival. The chief weaponeer, clearly thrown off their game by Dave's enthusiasm, began listing the compound's lethal properties. "This substance can dissolve molecular bonds. It rewrites genetic code. It causes spontaneous combustion at the quantum level." "So, spicy?" Dave nodded appreciatively. "Good thing I brought milk." What followed was perhaps the most unusual diplomatic negotiation in galactic history. Dave cheerfully sampled each increasingly lethal compound, offering casual commentary like he was at a wine tasting. "Nice bouquet on this one," getting notes of nuclear decay and a hint of citrus, while the Zorblaxian delegation oscillated between outrage and fascination. The turning point came when Dave mentioned that the third compound reminded him of something called 4 Loco, leading to an hour-long discussion about human recreational beverages that left the Zorblaxians both horrified and impressed. "You willingly consume ethanol?" the chief weaponeer asked incredulously. "For fun?" "Oh, that's just the beginning," Dave grinned. "Wait until you hear about energy drinks, or as we call them, heart attack in a can." By the end of the day, war had been averted. 3 new research partnerships had been established, and the Zorblaxian Empire had officially classified humans as too interesting to kill. They had also, somewhat worryingly, expressed great interest in human beverage recipes. "All in all, a productive day," Dave declared as he filled out his expense report, carefully categorizing potentially lethal alien bioweapons under business lunch. Dr. KRX, still processing everything they'd witnessed, had only one question. "But why did you bring milk?" "Oh, that's just basic science," Dave explained. "If something's trying to kill you through molecular bonds, dairy products usually help. Don't ask me why. I think it's because cows are secretly immortal or something." As the facility settled back into its normal routine, or what passed for normal when you had a human on staff, Dave checked his messages. Stella had already planned their next date, something about exploring a newly discovered space-time rift. "Just remember," Dr. KRX called after him, "the quantum anomaly chamber is not a dating venue." "Too late," Dave called back. "Already booked it for next week. Did you know if you reverse the polarity, it makes a great dance floor? The temporal shifts really help with my rhythm." The last thing he heard before heading home was the distinct sound of Dr. KRX updating the facility's safety protocols, adding a new section specifically titled Human-Related Incidents and How to Survive Them. Just another day in the life of humanity's most enthusiastic test subject. At least the cafeteria would have a hard time surprising him now. When a Deathworlder survived an alien poison that was fatal to every known species. Part 3. "Dave, why is your blood doing that?" Dr. Kurek stared at the medical scanner with what Dave had learned to recognize as their human-induced existential crisis expression. "Doing what?" Dave glanced up from his phone, where he was updating his social media status to just another toxic Monday. "It appears to be actively hunting the nanobots we injected for your routine health screening." The Xylaxian scientist's appendages twisted in confusion. "Your white blood cells are treating our most advanced medical technology like some sort of invasion game." "Oh yeah, that tracks." Dave nodded casually. My immune system's kind of overachieving ever since that incident with the quantum curry. Pretty sure it exists in multiple dimensions now. Last week it fought off a virus before I even caught it. Talk about preventative medicine, am I right? Before Dr. K-Rex could properly process this latest violation of known biology, the facility's AI interrupted with an emergency broadcast. Attention all personnel. Please be advised that the Galactic Research Council's annual Xenobiological Conference will be held here next week. All departments are requested to prepare presentations on their current research. Dave's face lit up. Sweet! Are we doing the presentation about how I survived all those lethal substances? Because I've been working on my PowerPoint slides. I added explosion sound effects and everything. Absolutely not. Director Vital's hologram materialized, looking even more stressed than usual. The last thing we need is other research facilities trying to replicate your unique testing methods. Too late! Stella waltzed in, her fronds glowing with amusement. Your survival of the Zorblaxian bioweapons went viral in the scientific community. 3 other facilities have already requested human test subjects. Did they get any volunteers? Dave asked, genuinely curious. Surprisingly, yes. Apparently your blog post about extreme science, when death is just a suggestion, really resonated with certain segments of the human population. Dr. K-Rex frantically pulled up the extranet on their datapad. There's a blog? Oh yeah, Dave grinned. Started it after the quantum curry incident. It's called Hold My Coffee, a human's guide to surviving definitely fatal things. We just hit 1 million subscribers. Turns out there's a huge market for content about humans casually defying death. The director's hologram flickered with what might have been a stress-induced glitch. Please tell me you haven't been sharing classified research data. Nah, just the fun stuff. Like that time the gravity generator malfunctioned and I discovered you can skateboard on the ceiling if you're going fast enough. Or when we found out human stomach acid can dissolve that indestructible alien metal everyone was so excited about. That was a breakthrough in materials science, Dr. KRX protested. Yeah, but have you considered marketing it as an extreme sport? Metallic midnight munchies? I'm telling you, it could be huge. The conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Professor Zivik, head of the comparative biology department. The professor, who resembled a scholarly jellyfish wearing reading glasses, was practically vibrating with excitement. Davidson, just the human I wanted to see. We've made an extraordinary discovery about your cellular structure. Let me guess, something else that should be impossible? Dave reached for his coffee mug, which now bore the label, contains substances banned in 47 star systems, and that's just the coffee. Your cells appear to have developed the ability to, the professor paused dramatically, rewrite their own genetic code on the fly. Huh. Dave took a sip of his coffee. Is that why I've been craving metal lately? Because last week I ate one of the lab's indestructible sample containers, and honestly, not bad. Kind of tangy. There was a moment of profound silence as everyone processed this information. You ate the sample container? Dr. Kurex's voice had risen several octaves. Yeah, sorry about that. I left a note and everything. Figured it was better than raiding the cafeteria again. Their new chef is from a dimension where flavor is considered a war crime. Professor Zavik was already taking notes. Fascinating. Your digestive system must have adapted to process non-organic matter. This could revolutionize our understanding of human adaptability. Cool. Does this mean I can expense my snacks as research materials now? Dave turned to Director Vital's increasingly distressed hologram. Because I've got receipts from that Andromedean metal market I visited last weekend. You went shopping for metals. To eat? The director seemed to be regretting every life choice that had led to this moment. Well, yeah. Stella suggested it for our date. Said if I'm going to develop metal-eating abilities, I might as well be fancy about it. We found this great little place that ages their titanium alloys in quantum fields. Really brings out the flavor. Stella's fronds rippled with pride. The owner was so impressed when Dave ate their display-only sample that they offered him a job as a food critic. Speaking of jobs, Dr. Kurex interjected. How are we going to present any of this at the conference? Human subject casually violates laws of nature, develops taste for indestructible materials isn't exactly a traditional scientific presentation. Already handled it, Dave said cheerfully. I'm doing a live demonstration. Figured it would be more fun than a boring old slideshow. Plus, I've been working on this really cool trick where I can digest antimatter without causing a universe-ending explosion. The collective gasp of horror from the assembled scientists was impressive. Antimatter? Director Vital's hologram actually glitched. Where did you even get— No, don't tell me. I don't want to know. Probably better that way, Dave agreed. Though I should mention that the antimatter dealer said something about a buy one get one free deal if we're interested. Apparently, business has been slow since I started eating their inventory. Professor Zavik was frantically updating their research notes. This adds an entirely new dimension to our study of human survival capabilities. Not only can they survive things that should kill them, but they actively seek out new and more lethal substances to consume. Hey, you can't make progress without pushing boundaries, Dave shrugged. Besides, how else am I supposed to maintain my food blog? Things that shouldn't be edible but apparently are. A human's culinary adventure through the deadly side of science. You have 2 blogs? Dr. Carrack seemed close to fainting, which was impressive for a being without conventional circulatory system. 3, actually. The third one's about extreme dating ideas for humans and energy-based lifeforms. Stella's been helping me with that one. Did you know you can have a pretty romantic picnic in a plasma storm if you time it right? Stella's bioluminescence brightened. The electrical discharges really bring out your eyes, honey. As the scientific staff tried to process this latest round of human-induced chaos, the facility's AI chimed in with what might have been a hint of resignation in its synthetic voice. Reminder, the conference preparation meeting begins in 10 minutes. Also, the cafeteria would like to remind everyone that eating the structural support beams, no matter how appetizing they may appear to certain evolved digestive systems, is strictly prohibited. That was one time, Dave protested, and in my defense they looked exactly like metal breadsticks. Just another typical day in humanity's ongoing mission to accidentally revolutionize galactic science through what Dave's latest blog post had termed aggressive survivability testing. At least the conference would be interesting, though perhaps someone should warn the other research facilities about human testing subjects, or at least install stronger containment fields, and maybe hide the antimatter. Ladies, gentlemen, and beings of indeterminate or quantum superposed gender. Dave stood at the conference podium, wearing what he insisted was his professional Hawaiian shirt, this one decorated with tiny lab beakers and mushroom clouds. Today I'm going to demonstrate why humans should probably come with warning labels. The assembled galactic scientific community watched with a mixture of fascination and horror as Dave pulled out what appeared to be a glowing lunchbox. Dave, Dr. Carrack's voice came through his earpiece. Please tell me that's not what I think it is. Relax, Dave whispered back. I followed all the safety protocols. Mostly. The antimatter is properly contained in a quantum-sealed sandwich bag. From her seat in the front row, Stella's fronds were pulsing with barely contained laughter. She'd helped him prepare for this presentation, which mainly involved stopping him from adding pyrotechnics to his demonstrations. But babe, science is more fun with explosions. As you can see from these charts, Dave continued, pulling up a holographic display. My cellular structure has evolved some interesting features over the past few months. Dr. Carrack, would you like to explain the technical details while I eat this supposedly impossible-to-contain quantum anomaly? Before the Xylaxian scientist could protest, Dave had already popped what looked like a glowing sandwich into his mouth. The audience erupted in chaos. Several prominent physicists fainted. Someone started praying in what might have been binary code. Oh, fascinating! Professor Zavik floated forward, tentacles waving excitedly. His digestive system appears to be creating a localized stability field. The antimatter isn't annihilating with normal matter. It's being converted into— Wait, is that nutrient energy? Pretty good too, Dave mumbled around his mouthful of physics-defying lunch. Kind of tangy with a hint of existential impossibility. Anyone want a bite? The entire front row recoiled in horror. Their loss, Dave shrugged, then turned to address a particularly agitated-looking scientist in the third row. Yes, the one with the phosphorescent whiskers, you have a question? How are you not dead? The scientist demanded, according to every known law of physics. Oh, we have a drinking game for that phrase. Dave brightened. Every time someone says, according to every known law of physics, we take a shot of whatever's currently classified as the galaxy's deadliest poison. Speaking of which, he pulled out a familiar purple vial. Director Vital's hologram materialized next to the podium. Mr. Davidson, this is supposed to be a serious scientific presentation. It is serious. Look, I even made graphs. Dave gestured to his holographic display, which showed a steadily rising line labeled, Cool Stuff Dave Survived, intersecting with another line labeled, Physics Growing Existential Crisis. From the audience, a Zorblaxian delegate raised a spiky appendage. Is it true that your cellular structure has begun incorporating quantum uncertainties? Oh yeah, check this out. Dave held up his arm, which briefly flickered through several probability states. Really helps with multitasking. I can technically be in multiple meetings at once now, though HR says that violates some clause about maintaining a singular corporeal form during work hours. Professor Zavik was practically bouncing with excitement. This is unprecedented. The human body adapting to incorporate quantum mechanics at a macro level. We must study this further. Already on it, Dave grinned. Stella and I have been running some tests in the quantum anomaly chamber. Turns out if you exist in multiple states at once, you can have dinner at every restaurant in the station simultaneously. Great for date night, terrible for the expense reports. Stella's bioluminescence flickered in what the audience was learning to recognize as the equivalent of an affectionate eye roll. He tried to expense it as quantum culinary research. And they approved it, Dave pointed out proudly. Though that might be because the accounting AI had a small existential crisis trying to process the receipts from multiple timeline variants. Another scientist raised a tentacle. What about the reports of your immune system achieving sentience? Oh, that? Dave scratched his head. Yeah, we're still working that out. It's developed a pretty snarky personality, to be honest. Keeps leaving passive-aggressive notes about my caffeine intake in my bloodstream. Dr. KRX, who had been monitoring Dave's vital signs throughout the presentation, suddenly spoke up. Dave, your cells appear to be... Are they doing differential calculus? Probably. Dave shrugged. They've been taking online courses in their spare time. Something about wanting to understand the math behind their own impossible existence. The conference hall erupted in a fresh wave of scientific chaos. 3 different universities immediately offered Dave's immune system teaching positions. But wait, there's more! Dave pulled out what looked like a metal ingot. Watch what happens when I... No! The collective shout from everyone who had ever worked with Dave came a second too late. The resulting demonstration of his newly evolved metallivorous capabilities sent the conference into complete disarray. 2 theoretical physicists had to be sedated. A quantum mathematician started laughing uncontrollably, declaring that reality was obviously a simulation, and they could all stop pretending physics made sense now. In conclusion, Dave said cheerfully, wiping metallic crumbs from his mouth, humans are basically what happens when you take normal evolutionary principles and replace survival of the fittest with hold my beer and watch this. Professor Zavik was already drafting a new paper titled Human Adaptability, When Impossible Becomes Tuesday. Dr. KRX had given up on maintaining scientific decorum and was stress-eating their way through a plate of quantum-shifted cookies Dave had brought, labeled Probably Won't Break Causality. Much. Oh, and before I forget, Dave added, I'm starting a new YouTube channel, Snacking on Science, a human's guide to eating things that eat you back. Like and subscribe for weekly videos of me surviving increasingly impossible things. Director Vital's hologram had developed a visible glitch that seemed to pulse in time with their growing headache. Mr. Davidson, we talked about this. Don't worry, I'll add a disclaimer. Don't try this at home unless you're from a death world and have already developed quantum digestive capabilities. The conference eventually had to be extended by 3 days to accommodate all the questions, most of which boiled down to variations of how and why. And please stop eating that. Dave considered it a successful presentation, especially after the Galactic Research Council created a new classification specifically for humans. Scientifically improbable, but somehow still here. Stella, meanwhile, was already planning their next date, something about exploring a newly discovered dimensional rift that was supposedly home to creatures that fed on pure mathematics. Think about it, she told him excitedly. If your cells can do calculus now, maybe we can have a double date with some 4-dimensional beings. Now that's what I call a variable dinner party, Dave grinned, already updating his blog with the title, Dating Through Dimensions, A Human's Guide to Romantic Quantum Entanglement. Just another day in the life of humanity's most enthusiastic test subject, proving that the real breakthrough in galactic science wasn't understanding how humans survived impossible things. It was accepting that they would keep doing it anyway, probably while live streaming. And somewhere in Dave's bloodstream, his immune system was writing its own research paper, titled Living with a Human Host, A Cellular Perspective on Chaos.